What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange, coming at you with part 2 of our Matchmaker series. We are going through the running back position today. We're going to be pairing some of our top prospects with the RB needy teams that we're going to kind of designate in a couple minutes. But you guys saw the quarterback video that was out yesterday. We have a special guest on for tomorrow's pass catchers video. We're going to be covering wide receivers and tight ends in that one, so make sure you guys are checking that out. We're going to have a live stream throughout the entire draft. We got a lot of content coming at you guys. This is prime Dynasty season with the NFL draft only 3 days from when we're recording this today, which is very exciting for me, and I know it is for you too.
Yeah, definitely. Looking at that 10th overall pick, just hoping and praying that the Cowboys can add an elite difference maker, whether it's on their back end or potentially Kyle Pitts if he falls. But yeah, you mentioned it. Today we're going to be going into these running backs. We're going to be talking about, everybody knows the top three at the top. We're going to be talking about the mid-round guys. We're going to be talking about the late-round guys. We're going to basically be pairing, as you saw in the quarterback video, prospect to team based off potential scheme fit, based off potential expected draft capital, being able to see what we want going in versus what actually ends up happening. And maybe along the way, if we get anything right. But yeah, how about you, Corey?
I mean, we got a couple right last year. I pegged J.K. Dobbins to the Baltimore Ravens last year. I think somebody, can't remember who it was, but somebody pegged Cam Akers to the Rams as well. So,
might have been me.
Mean, sometimes these guys end up in the ideal situation. So if you guys enjoy this video, if you enjoy any of our content, if you have any way that you want to support us, the best way you can support us is by liking all of our videos, commenting on all of our videos, and subscribing to the channel. It helps us grow tremendously. So go ahead and do that if you haven't already done so. We're going to hit the intro, and then we're going to get into the first team. Okay, so as I mentioned, we made, and if you guys saw the quarterback video, you know this as well, we made a list of the teams that we deem to need a running back at some point in the draft, whether it's in the first round, second round, late in the draft, whatever. So these on the screen right now, you'll see the teams that we basically deem to be RB needy. We got the Dolphins, Steelers, Cardinals, Bills, Jets, Buccaneers, Falcons, 49ers, Jaguars, and Bengals. At some point in the draft, we expect these guys to address the running back position. The question is going to be when and who, and that's what we're going to try and figure out right now. So we're going to start with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I would say they're probably the most likely of any team in the NFL to pick a running back in the first round. And I'm going to assume we have the same player as the dream landing spot, because remember, this is a fantasy channel. What Najee Harris, who I have going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, the best case scenario for Najee Harris is that he is used the way that Le'Veon Bell was used in Pittsburgh.
Yes. No, I definitely agree. Again, this is a do-it-all running back that can really, like, if you're talking about a scheme-diverse running back, Najee Harris fits that to a T. There's some question marks in terms of schematics for the other top running backs in this class. I don't think there's any type of question mark when it comes to Najee Harris. And when you're mentioning the Pittsburgh Steelers, he can fit in a power run scheme. He can fit inside zone. He can make plays out of the backfield. He can be used in line. He can be used in so many facets for this offense. And when you're actually evaluating the pieces, you got Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson, and Chase Claypool on the outside right now. When you're talking about that RB core, Benny Snell and Anthony McFarland is not going to be able to get the job done. Adding a pure bell cow type back in Najee Harris, who, in my opinion, can step in immediately and be that 20 to 22 touch per game type back, I think you could be looking at top 7, 8 running back in his first year if he's a Pittsburgh Steeler. I really do think so, which is why I picked him here as my match for the Steelers at that 24th overall pick. And I think it's going to happen. I think come Thursday, the card's going to be turned in. Najee Harris, running back Alabama, is going to be the name on that card. And we're going to be celebrating, because as soon as that happens in that live stream, my face is going to go so red.
Yeah, and you guys know Travis Etienne is currently my RB1 from a talent perspective. There's nowhere that Travis Etienne can go that would top Najee Harris as a Pittsburgh Steeler. It's such an easy projection, right? We know Tomlin can use a running back like this before. He used Le'Veon Bell for all those years. Of course, the offensive line was better when Le'Veon Bell was in his prime, but Harris to the Steelers is just such an easy projection because we know they have an opening for a feature back. Right now, currently, they have Benny Snell and Anthony McFarland at the top of their depth chart. They let James Conner walk in free agency. He signed with the Cardinals. And we know they love using feature backs. We know Najee has the size and the build to be an RB1 in the NFL and hold up, unlike James Conner was able to the past couple of years. It'd be very hard for me to rank Najee Harris anywhere other than my rookie RB1. and potentially a top 2-3 dynasty overall rookie pick.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. If Najee Harris lands with the Pittsburgh Steelers, top 2 or 3 after my top quarterback would make a bunch of sense there. So that being said, I feel like we can kind of move off the Pittsburgh Steelers here. We both agree. Najee Harris, certified stud, top 10 dynasty running back if he lands with the Steelers. What is the next RBDD team that you have here?
Yeah, so I got I'm trying to do these in the order that I think they're going to go to attack this position in the draft. So I talked about the New York Jets next, just because I think the Jets, based on their draft capital right now, they currently have the 23rd overall pick, and I think the 34th or 33rd overall pick or something like that in the second round. So they have 2 picks in what I would consider prime territory to get one of these top 3 guys, because as you guys should all know by now, there is a clear top 3 tier of this running back class. And my RB1 is who I actually have going to the New York Jets, because I think it's the perfect fit for him based on the range of the draft that I think he's going to go. I think if at 23 overall or potentially at 34 overall, Travis Etienne, running back from Clemson, I think there's a finite list of teams that fit what Etienne does very well. He's a one-cut-and-go runner who would very much excel in a wide zone scheme that the San Francisco 49ers run, for example. And now that Mike LaFleur is coming over to the New York Jets as the offensive coordinator, we assume they're going to run a similar system there. So I think with what Etienne does well, with what the New York Jets need, they're going to need somebody to take the pressure off their presumable number 2 overall pick quarterback, Zach Wilson. Pairing a guy like Etienne with that can help the rookie quarterback get his legs under him with an experienced runner like Etienne.
Yeah, and I was looking into it yesterday. I'm like, I initially had a later round running back going here, but with all the draft capital that the Jets have at the top, with having that new scheme with Mike LaFleur and Robert Saleh coming home, I have Travis Etienne as well. That 34th overall pick makes a ton of sense. Presumably, you add Zach Wilson and potentially maybe a receiver, edge, cornerback type at the 23rd. You have the luxury of taking a guy in Etienne at the 34th pick to really give that young quarterback a stable running mate in the backfield. You mentioned the scheme. That wide zone scheme that Mike LaFleur is going to run is going to be really what Travis Etienne's bread and butter is in transitioning to the NFL. Get him in space, get him on the edge, and get him to use that elite speed to really just break away from defenders. You mentioned a guy that could kind of be that running stylistic comparison for what we saw in San Francisco. He can kind of profile as that Raheem Mostert, take it to the edge, take it down the field, and break off big plays almost at will. And when we've seen Raheem Mostert on the field these past couple years, he's been making big plays. I think Etienne is a more talented version of that with more pass catching capabilities, because obviously we know Mostert does have the limitations at that end. But Travis Etienne could step in as that 3-down specialist for the Jets with that type of speed, with that type of explosion, with that type of big play potential. And although it wouldn't top Harris as my RB1 if he landed as a Steeler, I would be perfectly fine with taking Etienne as a top 5 or 6 overall rookie draft pick if he was a New York Jet, because I expect that workload, because I expect that success with that system. So I definitely agree. Travis Etienne, Jets, will absolutely love that on draft day.
Yeah, and I contemplated putting the Arizona Cardinals as Travis Etienne's perfect fit, but you got to think from a fantasy perspective, if Travis Etienne becomes an Arizona Cardinal, we have a question mark about how much pass catching work he's going to receive, right? Because they have Chase Edmonds and Travis Etienne. There's already been question marks about his film usage, basically, of his pass catching skill set, even though I think it's fully developed. A lot of people have questions about if he's actually a natural pass catcher or if he's more of a check down L route kind of running back in the passing game. I think he can be a weapon in the passing game, but we obviously would have that question if he were to be an Arizona Cardinal. And I think with Mike LaFleur, what he can bring to the passing game for Zach Wilson, as we talked about yesterday, he can bring to the running game as well. Coming from that tree, there will be a strong emphasis on the running game, like we've seen from his brother Matt LaFleur when he was hired in Green Bay. He took the number 22 rushing offense in 2018 to number 15 and number 8 the next 2 years with the exact same running backs, with Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams the whole time. And that's what we saw from Matt LaFleur. Etienne could be a target for the Jets either at 23, if he is, according to all rumors, the number 1 running back on most teams' boards, which is not a quote from me. It's a quote from people who have connections to the league, or with their early second rounder. Maybe they even sneak back into the first round to get the 5th-year option as well. I think Mike LaFleur will see a lot of Aaron Jones, much like I see in Travis Etienne. And we know how his brother has used the real thing in Aaron Jones in Green Bay. So I think it's a perfect fit.
Yeah, no, definitely. With that being said, Corey, 13, who do you got?
I got the Miami Dolphins. I think they're also in the market for a high-end running back. We know they were expected to be in on a guy like Jonathan Taylor last year. It didn't really work out. And we saw a seventh-round pick in Myles Gaskin really carry the load for them last year. But I think they're going to invest a little bit more heavily in this position this year. What say you? What do you got for the Miami Dolphins?
I think we got the same guy if you mentioned that, and I actually have.
I don't Williams. Actually.
Really? Oh, I thought you mentioned that you're going to expend a good amount of capital. But
prediction-wise, I think they're going to spend a good amount of capital. From a scheme fit for the prospect to a fantasy perspective thing, I went with a later round guy. But from a prediction-wise, I do think the Dolphins might spend up at this position.
Respectively. Well, I do actually have them spending up at this position. And you guys, process of elimination, if I have the other top two running backs already off the board and they're spending elite capital, I'm going to get that third and final running back in that top tier. That's going to be Javonte Williams going here to the Miami Dolphins. You mentioned out of the feature back potential running backs in this class, this is the last one, in my opinion. We saw what he was able to do this year. Just an absolute tremendous runner of the football. Physical, elusive. We mentioned his absolute ridiculous elusiveness rating when we were actually talking about his comparison. We did the ADP not ADP battles, prospect battles between him and his own teammate. And he was one of the best charted running backs that PFF has ever evaluated. You don't get there without having that elite film. And when myself and Corey both watched this film, guess what? This is an elite bell cow type running back for a team, which we've tweeted throughout the season last year, wants to profile a bell cow type running back. We saw Myles Gaskin with 90 to 92% of the opportunities in the backfield when he was healthy, when he was leading the role. And heck, even Salvin Ahmed was averaging 18 touches per game or so when Myles Gaskin was not playing. We've seen Brian Flores wants to feature a runner. Javonte Williams is ready to take on that load, ready to be that 18 to 20 touch per game back in the NFL. You mentioned it. Between the tackles, stud. This year, 20 touchdowns, could finish off on the goal line. And we've seen throughout UNC that he is able to catch the football and make plays in space. I think he would be that perfect overall fit at that 36th overall selection if they do decide to spend high at the running back position. And with a ton of draft capital available in this draft for the Miami Dolphins, it makes sense to finally get to a running mate in that backfield that has the draft capital, has the contract to be able to really last for these next 4 years. So I'm hyped. I want Javonte Williams to be a Dolphin, and I want them to use that 36 overall pick to do so.
See, here's my problem with that fit, though, is that to get to 36 for Javonte Williams, he's got to go through a gauntlet of other teams that are going to need running backs, right? It starts with like Buffalo at 30, and then you get to Tampa Bay at 32, and then you got the Jets early in the second round. You get the Falcons early in the second round. For them to get Javonte Williams at 36, to me, would be a surprise. And I also think you don't want to be taking him at 18. That's too high for Javonte Williams, in my opinion. So their draft capital, the Miami Dolphins, is in a range where they might just miss out on a top three running back unless they wanted to reach on one at 18. So I actually have them opting to like punt the position basically, and they've shown propensity not to invest heavily before. They have a third rounder at 81 and a fourth rounder at 156. I think Elijah Mitchell makes a lot of sense for what the Miami Dolphins look for. He's a guy who can do everything. He can catch the ball, he can run the ball, he can pass protect, but he doesn't do anything exceptionally well. He's a great athlete according to his pro day results, and I think he would make a lot of sense for them or any team looking to invest in a potential starter in rounds 3 to 4. And I think Miami seems likely to do something like that just based on where their picks fall in the NFL draft. They might miss out on these top guys.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense too. I'm going to be talking about Elijah Mitchell a little later on, and 100 to 110th draft pick or so would make sense in terms of draft capital. So yeah, no, I like that fit. With that being said, who's the next team we have on the board here?
All right, so I talked about them already, but we're going to go over to the Atlanta Falcons because they have a very high draft pick in the second round, which is going to be prime running back territory for them. Do you have them using that pick on a running back, or who do you got?
So I'm assuming that at the 35th pick, that's where Javonte Williams gets sniped, in your opinion. I'll just say here, they go defense at that pick. Maybe they say, you know, well, whatever, we had a tier break after Etienne and Harris. We're going to wait till that 68th overall pick. And at that point, I think Trey Sermon does make sense for them. You got the receiving capabilities of a guy in Mike Davis who can fill in as that 2A, 1B type, if that makes sense. And you can just let Trey Sermon be your physical between the tackles runner on first and second down. they really lack that physicality for the last couple of years. Todd Gurley was supposed to be that last year. That guy didn't last. You had Ito Smith and freaking who's that other garbage running back that they had last year? Brian Hill. Nah, they're going to get a big physical tone setter to really complement what they want to do on offense. Because let's be honest here, you got the speed and nuance of Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, potentially Kyle Pitts in that receiving core. Getting a guy in Trey Sermon who, if you devote so much attention to the outside on those receivers, is going to just absolutely eat between the tackles. One of the absolute best in terms of metrics this year, according to PFF, and had, quite frankly, one of the best 3 or 4 game runs that I've seen in quite a while, ending off that Ohio State season. I feel like if you get him at that 68th overall pick, it could really do a lot in balancing out your offense because everybody knows how good they are at passing. Being able to get that physical between the tackles runner is how you can really form your identity, give yourself a form of physicality that you've really lacked for these past couple of years. So I absolutely like it. And it may be a surprise to some hearing, 68th overall pick, Trey Sermon. I feel like the NFL is going to value this guy higher than even we do, to be honest.
Yep. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think the way the Atlanta Falcons draft strategy is probably going to be built around, it's going to hinge on their 4th overall pick, right? Because if they pick a quarterback, they might not be likely to pick a running back early in the draft because they might be looking more towards 2022 and beyond with a guy like Trey Lance or Justin Fields. But if they stick with Matt Ryan and they go with a Kyle Pitts or Jamar Chase or even Penei Sewell or something like that, they might be more inclined to pick a running back early in the draft. And I seriously think this 35th overall pick is going to be Javonte Williams. I think the top of the 2nd round is exactly the range that I think Javonte Williams will probably go. When you're talking about Arthur Smith coming in as the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, he came from a system with a physical downhill runner in Derrick Henry. And obviously they're not the same type of running back aside from the way that they run. From a size perspective, it's not even close. But he was able to build an offense around a feature back that was top 5 in play action percentage. And Smith probably wants that running threat to run that type of play action offense. And Williams makes a lot of sense for a guy that can do everything well. He can do everything great, in fact, and you can build your entire rushing offense around him. I also do think it would be possible that Atlanta sees Mike Davis as more of their 1st and 2nd down banger, and they wanted to add a pass catcher guy like a Kenny Gainwell or a Michael Carter at some point, maybe with the 60th pick or something like that. But I think Javonte Williams is a perfect fit for what Arthur Smith is going to covet at the running back position.
Yeah, definitely. And it's actually funny because Trey Sermon would be like that B-Tech version of what you would get at Javonte Williams at 35. You get the discount with Trey Sermon at 30 or 68. So I do think that adding that physical, big size type running back for an Arthur Smith offense is really crucial because they haven't had that guy in years. But what's the next team we have on the board here?
Yeah, so we got the Arizona Cardinals up next, and they're a team that, I suppose they could go running back at 16. They could trade down in the 1st round, maybe if the top corners or whatever aren't available, and maybe target a Najee Harris or Travis Etienne at that point in the draft. But I think they're going to go on defense or in a different direction in the 1st round, and their 2nd round pick is really where they're looking.
I have the same one.
Make an impact. No, we don't, because you already used this guy. So I actually have Trey Sermon as the guy to Arizona because I think he's kind of just like a younger and less injury-prone James Conner, right? They brought in James Conner, and I think you have Chase Edmonds as your scat back. I think the role that Chase Edmonds has is fine. I don't think you want to change his role. You just need a physical complement to him, and Sermon's strengths and weaknesses kind of line up perfectly with what Chase Edmonds provides your offense. And the Cardinals don't actually have a 3rd rounder right now, so Sermon would likely need to be their 2nd round pick, or maybe they kind of trade down in the 1st round, recoup a 3rd rounder and take Trey Sermon with that. But I seriously think there's a chance that Trey Sermon's a 2nd round running back in the NFL draft. And the Cardinals make a lot of sense for him because he has something that they're kind of signed James Conner to get insurance on, but they need a physical running back to complement the elusive quarterback rushing attack that Kyler Murray can provide. I think providing a physical running attack would be a good complement to that.
Yeah, and inversely, I actually have another guy that I feel like could profile into that 1st and 2nd down role. Having Chase Edmonds on that 3rd round would be ideal. And it might be a shock, 49th overall selection, but I think the NFL is going to value his 2019 season over his 2020 season. I have Chuba Hubbard going here. And when I'm looking at it, kind of similar to what he ran in college with that wide open passing attack at Oklahoma State, wide zone, get him on the edge, get him in space, make him, whether it's from a patient running style or one cut, he can do it all from a pure running stylistic perspective. I feel like landing here with the Arizona Cardinals with Kyler Murray would be the perfect situation for Chuba Hubbard to get back to that 2019 form, one that had him rushing for 2,200 yards, 20 touchdowns, being one of the best running backs in the country. 49th might seem a little steep for a lot of people who solely watched his 2020 film, but 2019 was just a different breed. We were talking about a guy in 2019 that was the clear 2-3 with Najee Harris and Travis Etienne before Javonte Williams broke out. That's how highly regarded he was. And quite frankly, if Chuba Hubbard lands as an Arizona Cardinal, my eyes are open. I'm willing to take this guy earlier in that second round because there's a clear path to opportunity working with, in conjunction, Chase Edmonds. He was never going to profile as a three-down guy. It just wasn't going to happen. His pass catching limitations and his pass blocking limitations were always going to stop him initially. So people might say, oh, well, like, what's his upside now if he's not going to be a three-down guy? He could be your first and second down guy if you're in Arizona. He could be that goal line guy if you're in Arizona. He showed a propensity to score touchdowns, move the chains with ease. If he lands with Arizona, this is, in my opinion, the best possible spot for him. And at second round, 49th overall draft capital, yeah, he talking about a top 15 to 17 type pick in rookie drafts, I think he'd be well worth that selection.
Yeah, and I think with Hubbard, you get a guy who has a similar skill set to Kenyon Drake too, right? Because you lost Kenyon Drake, bring in a younger version, hopefully a guy that's more durable and can handle a workload, which we've seen from Hubbard, at least in 2019. He was definitely able to handle a big workload then. So hopefully that would be a great spot for him. I think he gets into borderline first round consideration at the end of the first round in rookie drafts, because he would be clearly probably the RB4 behind the top three guys, depending on where they go. So the next team we have here is the Buffalo Bills. I think they're a team that I saw a report today that Peter King thinks they should go after Travis Etienne. And I think that's a good fit for them as well. But I have them opting to go for a different position in the first round and attacking this position maybe on day 2 sometime. The Bills currently have picks 61 and 93 in the NFL 61. Draft, which should be the range of who I think is the 4th best running back in the class, and Michael Carter from North Carolina. I think he's a shifty, elusive, physical receiving back that can be a good complement to their current running backs and to their quarterback's rushing ability as well, because they don't really have any explosiveness in that backfield, right? Josh Allen is their explosiveness, and he's their quarterback, because Zach Moss is a turtle, and he can't run very fast at all. And Devin Singletary, despite being a small running back, is also not very fast. So you got Michael Carter, who ran 4.5 flat at his pro day, which is very adequate speed and very much faster than any of the running backs they currently have. And he led the country in breakaway run percentage this past year. So he not only can he give you the deep home run ability runs, he can also break off those 25, 30-yard runs that a guy like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who is my comparison for Michael Carter, can bring you. So I think he's basically what we all wanted Devin Singletary to be before his combine happened.
Yeah, no, I have the exact same spot. Michael Carter here to the Bills at that 61st overall selection. Tell me, out of that Bills running back core, who's scaring you as a receiving threat? Yeah, Zach Moss can catch the ball. Cool. He can catch checkdowns. He could probably get you a couple yards after the catch. None of them scare you the way a Michael Carter would. You can use Michael Carter in a multiple ways in that offense. You can split him out. You can have him running angle routes. You can have him just working in space. Michael Carter is able to take what he gets and bust out more. They don't necessarily have that type of running back in that backfield right now. Devin Singletary, I'm sorry, he's just not what I wanted him to be.
He's kind of like Jared Patterson. He's a small running back who's like a meh athlete who doesn't catch the ball very well, which is, he's shifty like that. He brings that to the table. Nobody's denying his elusiveness, but that's pretty much all he provides you, right? Like to me, that screams a special teams player, because I think he'd be really good in that role. And I think he'd give him a couple carries here and there, but he's a guy that's going to be a free agent after this year anyway. So even if you do address Michael Carter and he takes over Devin Singletary's role, Devin Singletary isn't going to be around very long, and Carter provides much, much more as a receiver than Singletary can.
Definitely. And like the main stigma around landing with the Buffalo Bills is, oh, Josh Allen's going to chip into a lot of your touchdown success. You were never really relying on Michael Carter returning high touchdown rates regardless. So him landing here is much less of a landmine than like say Javonte Williams or Najee Harris, Travis Etienne. None of those guys landing here, because quite frankly, they do rely on their rushing touchdowns to give you that overall blend of success. Michael Carter is going to succeed in the NFL by being that 60, 65, 70 reception type guy. And in this offense, having that outlet out of the backfield with really no other true receiving threats apart from Stephon Diggs in that offense, I think you can see a guy who might receive 70 targets as a rookie if he gets the requisite draft capital. So I really like the spot. Michael Carter, Buffalo Bills. What's the next one we have on here?
Yeah, so we got my team here. We got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I go back and forth with this all the time. I have no idea if they're going to address running back at 32, if they're going to address running back at 132. Like, I really don't have any idea. I think the Gio Bernard signing is a little overrated in the eyes of some people because they're like, Gio Bernard's immediately going to come in and be their third down back, which is true. But if they draft, if a guy that they like in the draft falls, they're going to cut Gio Bernard probably before the season even starts because that's what Jason Light does. He does it every year. When he has a specific need on his roster, which in this case was a third down running back because Fournette and Rojo can't fill that role for you. They led the NFL last year and dropped passes at the running back position. You need to get a guy that can contribute on third down. We know how much Tom Brady used James White in New England. And I think a guy like Michael Carter, a guy like Kenny Gainwell, who is exactly who I matched them, I know how much those guys wanted Antonio Gibson last year. They loved Antonio Gibson, and they didn't get him. I know they were also in on Tony Pollard the year before that. So Memphis back, baby. They got roots there. The 64th pick in the NFL draft could be absolutely earmarked for a running back to complement the physical runners that they currently have. Kenny Gainwell and Carter both fit that Gio Bernard role that they probably have in mind for him. Like I said, Gio will probably get cut before training camp if either of those guys are drafted to the Buccaneers. And the Bucs running backs, as I mentioned, led the league in dropped passes coming from Tom Brady. And Tom Brady's all the do your job, like just get the job done kind of quarterback. Like at the very least, Kenny Gainwell ain't dropping the ball. And he's not screwing up in pass protection. He was a single highest graded player in this class in pass protection for the running back position. So he can be your third down back. That's all you need him to do. You have two physical runners that you can give the ball on first and second down. Just sub Kenny Gainwell in on third down. It'd be very simple. It's a very logical fit as well.
Yeah, you covered it. Kenneth Gainwell, 64th or said 95th overall selection. I could see either of them being used on this guy. You mentioned a need for a third down back. Guys, Gio Bernard, this is not the Gio Bernard that was selected in the second round in 2013. This is not the Gio Bernard who had some RB1, RB2 type success early in his career. This is a Gio Bernard who has been relegated to a spot-in third down role for the past 3 years. Let's be honest here. And quite frankly, he's not getting any younger. So by saying that you solved your third down need by signing Gio Bernard to a vet minimum non-guaranteed contract is just absolutely delusional. The
one thing that I will say is that it could be Keyshawn Vaughn insurance, right? They might still believe in Keyshawn Vaughn, and they might just have signed Gio Bernard in case Keyshawn Vaughn can't develop into that role. But to be honest, I don't think Keyshawn Vaughn's strengths were ever on third down. I don't know where that reputation came from. I thought he was a better first and second down back than he was a third down back at Vanderbilt anyway. So I think this pick makes a lot of sense. The reason they signed Gio Bernard is so that they have somebody, in case they miss out on Gainwell, in case they miss out on Carter, in case they miss out on whoever else that they would value in this kind of role in the draft. They have Gio Bernard in case. He's breaking case of emergency kind of running back.
Yeah, 100%. Kenneth Gainwell landing here would be perfect because at the end of the day here, Rojo, I believe, is gone next year. Next year, right?
Yeah. He could always re-sign to like a cheap because he's not going to command big money on the free agent market. So he could always re-sign as your primary ball carrier. Fournette, you never know with him because
is he a 1 or 2 years
he's on a 1-year deal. He could get more money next year if he has another solid season, keeps his head on straight.
Gio Bernard 1-year deal. Like people aren't going to talk about a running back need because they got 3 decent ones on the roster right now. But let's be honest here. If you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and you don't have a lot of needs, you're looking at a position that has 3 1-year contracts. You can run them in as your third down, three back this year, and then have them take over next season and beyond if you choose to go cheap at the position. So taking him at that 64th or 95th pick gives you a lot of flexibility financially that, let's be honest here, Jason Light is one of the best in the business at being able to handle his financials. He's going to see the value of a guy like Kenneth Gainwell who can do it all and see why would I pay these other 3 running backs when this guy can just do a little bit of everything. So I definitely agree. Kenneth Gainwell, good fit here with Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We can move off of.
Yep. All right. So the San Francisco 49ers, we already kind of talked about them. In terms of draft capital, they obviously made the big move up to number 3 to secure, we presume, their franchise quarterback of the future. That leaves them, in terms of running back picks, that leaves them with pick 43 and pick 102, which is a compensatory third rounder, which should be kind of on the high to low end of where the guy that I selected for them gets drafted. On the high end, that pick 43 could be used on Chuba Hubbard. On the low end, that pick 102 could be used on Chuba Hubbard if his medicals were flagged or something like that. So I like Chuba Hubbard running back from Oklahoma State to the San Francisco 49ers.
I like it.
Much like Travis Etienne, Hubbard is a great fit for this scheme. He totally fits the bill as somebody that Kyle Shanahan would love. He's a guy I actually compared to Raheem Mostert. I think it's a good comparison. They're both the same type of like track athlete, one cut and go runners that Kyle Shanahan would love. And if anybody can unlock the 2019 version of Chuba Hubbard, it's Kyle Shanahan, and this pick could be an absolute steal, especially if he were to go at like 102 to the Niners and they got him there.
Yeah, I went a different direction. I went a different type of outside zone runner that we actually saw here at Virginia Tech this year. I'm going with Khalil Herbert. I think he's a Kyle Shanahan running back, a guy that can really do it all. He showed adequate ability in the receiving game. He's a good one-cut runner, can play in that wide zone scheme for Kyle Shanahan. And he's a guy that would probably work best as a good number 2 in the NFL. It doesn't necessarily have to be that true workhorse down-to-down type running back. Guess what? If you're landing with Kyle Shanahan, he's going to cycle you in and out. He's going to keep those running backs fresh. And Khalil Herbert operating on a fresh basis for this team would be ideal. Now, you're mentioning the fit. You got Raheem Mostert. You got Jeff Wilson. Adding Khalil Herbert to
he's your Matt Breida.
Yeah, exactly. So with that being said, I mean, I think for both the player and the team, this is a match made in heaven. You mentioned that 102nd overall pick, end of the 3rd round, early 4th round type area is probably where I'll see Khalil Herbert going if he were to become a San Francisco 49er. So I like both those fits because I had Hubbard already off the board at 49, went with Khalil Herbert here at 102.
Yeah, and I think that 43 pick, man, one of the, like, if I could bet on this somehow, like one of the sneakiest bets I could make is San Francisco takes Chuba Hubbard at 43. Like, I just think I could just totally see it. He totally seems like a 49er to me. It seems like the type of discount that you're getting on him because let's be honest here, if he came out and built upon his 2019 season, we could have been talking about a 1st-round running back, right? Yeah. Like, he had come out and improved in the receiving game and stuff like that. He could have been a really highly touted running back coming out of Oklahoma State. So this could look like a steal a couple years from now if this were to happen. So let's go to a couple teams more so that are in need of complementary backs, not necessarily guys to compete for starting jobs, but the running back position is a fragile position, right? And the Jacksonville Jaguars, in my opinion, who have James Robinson being the only show in town right now, they have Carlos Hyde, who they signed. The position is too fragile to have really zero contingency plan if James Robinson were to get hurt. Carlos Hyde is a fine complement. He's a fine backup, so maybe they don't add anyone of significance. But I could also see them spending moderate draft capital, maybe in the 3rd to 5th round, on a running back who can challenge for a pass-catching role or a change of pace role. And the Jags have 5 picks from rounds 3 to 5. So this is, especially for them, this is the range that I see a guy like Khalil Herbert, who you just talked about, running back from Virginia Tech. I could expect Herbert to go in this range of the draft. And I think he would actually make a good fit in this rotation as a change of pace guy that could maybe work his way into a bigger role on 3rd down if he can develop that part of his game, or work into a bigger role if an injury were to happen to either Hyde or to Robinson. Because I think Khalil Herbert's a guy that I think has a lot of upside, and he provides something that James Robinson doesn't, which is more explosiveness out of the backfield when you got the more kind of physical style of James Robinson. So I think Khalil Herbert maybe as a 3rd, 4th round pick makes a lot of sense to the Jaguars to add some more depth to that backfield.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like the Jaguars could definitely spend, if San Francisco doesn't take him at 102, that 106th overall pick would make a ton of sense for a guy like Khalil Herbert. I actually have another guy that you already talked about kind of going in this range. That's going to be Elijah Mitchell. And this is a guy that, similar to what kind of James Robinson represented last year, I think Elijah Mitchell could be that type of player in this draft. So if you're looking at a potential guy who can take on the load if anything were to happen to James Robinson, Elijah Mitchell makes a ton of sense to do so. Now, when you're talking about this guy, super underrated in general. A lot of people aren't really talking about him, but I think he's a prototypical fit for this offense and what they want to do. You got Carlos Hyde, you got James Robinson. Elijah Mitchell kind of just does a lot of things pretty well. Like, he can catch the ball, he can work in between the tackles, he can work on the edge. He's really just a good piece to add to this core. And you mentioned it, they do not have a contingency plan if anything were to happen to James Robinson. Having that guy in Mitchell who can step in and give you adequate production if anything were to happen at that late 3rd, early 4th round type area, I think would be a good fit, especially for a team, a young team that wants to build around Trevor Lawrence. Having another running mate in that backfield would be crucial for him. So I do agree. Elijah Mitchell, 106th overall pick. I think that would be a very good fit.
Right. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense as well. I think they're going to add somebody. I don't know when it's going to be or if it's going to be really high in the draft. Maybe they draft a guy in like the 7th round or something. At that point, it's wheels up for James Robinson. But I do think they're going to add someone of moderate significance to the backfield. So the next backfield that we're going to talk about here is the Cincinnati Bengals, who we talked about the aforementioned Gio Bernard going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If anybody thinks that Joe Mixon is going to have that backfield to themselves, they are sorely mistaken, because it has never happened in Joe Mixon's career. Why is it going to happen now? The coaching staff is the same as it has been the past couple of years. They've always had a compliment to Joe Mixon, and I think they're going to add it in this year's draft. So, and specifically, I think it's going to be, to the dismay of many fantasy owners, a 3rd down running back to take away pass catching work from Joe Mixon. And I think it's going to be Kylan Hill from Mississippi State. Like, did we seriously think that they're just going to all of a sudden give Joe Mixon receiving work? It's just not going to happen. Joe Mixon is going to be a limited what-if scenario forever in fantasy. So Kylan Hill comes in. He is the prototypical 3rd down back. I think he is very limited as a runner. I don't like his ability to run in between the tackles. I don't think he's all that elusive or decisive in the hole. But what he does do really well is he runs routes, he can catch the ball, and he can make things happen after the catch. So he's basically your younger version of Gio Bernard. I think it's a pretty seamless fit if they were to draft him in maybe the 3rd, 4th round.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Sorry, you cut out for a second for me. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Having that guy in Kylan Hill, who's actually my fit as well, would be crucial. You mentioned it. They are not just going to give and unload the reign to Joe Mixon right now just because fantasy managers ask them to. NFL franchises think of the same way. Joe Mixon hasn't proven to be that consistent 60-plus catch guy throughout his career. What's going to change to make him that guy this year? Anybody have an answer? I don't. If Gio Bernard was seriously that threat and him getting cut was seriously that big of news to propel you to Joe Mixon receiving that amount of volume, I'm sorry, a guy who just signed a vet minimum deal elsewhere shouldn't be that much of a cause of concern, in all honesty. They're going to add someone. Kylan Hill would be a good fit. You mentioned he does have limitations on the ground, not too elusive, not too great in between the tackles. But guess what? This guy can work in space, and he can add to that receiving game. 111th to 149th pick, either of them would make a ton of sense for a guy in Kylan Hill. And quite frankly, it's going to be a Bengals move. They have that young quarterback. They're going to build that offensive line. They're probably going to add a receiving weapon. Having a guy in Kylan Hill who can also add another element out of the backfield in addition to what they already have is necessary for this offense to thrive. So I definitely agree. Kylan Hill, 111th or 149th pick would make sense here.
Yep. And I think I have one last team. I don't know if you did this one for this one, but or did a player for this one, but I put Ramondre Stevenson for the Eagles just because I think it would be hilarious.
That'd be fun.
Because, I mean, Ramondre Stevenson, they always keep trying to add a 2-down banger to that offense to take away goal line carries from Miles Sanders is what I'm presuming is the reason. They seem intent on adding a power back. They were in on James Conner. They tried to bring back they tried to bring in like Chris Carson or Leonard Fournette. They were in on guys in free agency. So Stevenson, to me, can be a day 3 add as a 2-down thumper complement to Miles Sanders. And hopefully that would mean Miles Sanders getting more receiving work and being used more as an efficient back, where I think he kind of gets into injury troubles when you give him an entire workload. Yeah,
I definitely agree. Ramondre Stevenson, or even like Jared Dokes would make sense. Just a big, physical, meaty, BMI loving running back would definitely be what they would bring back. Didn't they end up bringing back Jordan Howard as well?
Yeah, they did. But Jordan Howard,
getting another Jordan Howard, just set the tone. Right?
Exactly. So, if we got anything, do you have anything else on the running back position? I think we're ready, man. Yeah. If you guys are interested in any more rookie content, you've seen it going across the bottom of the screen the whole time. We have our draft guide right now available for only $15, which is 50% off the initial price that we launched it. We got everything that you're going to need, all your rookie rankings, your player write-ups, your stats databases for any of your own research that you want to do. All of my player cards are in there. We got a number of different strategy articles and pro day results and stuff like that. So if you guys haven't already checked out our draft guide, you can go to thefantasystockexchange.com, watch the video on the homepage to see all of the amazing features that are in there. And again, only $15 right now. You can go kind of cop that. And if you guys want any more advice, you can join our Discord. We always answer the questions in there, and we have plenty of other Dynasty fanatics in there that can help you answer your questions as well. So with that being said, guys, hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and enjoy your Tuesday.
Yep. Peace out, y'all.